I'm Stacey.
And I'm Lois.
And this is Whose Girl Are You? Today, we have my friend JoAnn with us, and we're going to be talking to her about a variety of things. Single parenting, addiction recovery, codependency, wherever the path may lead. Mm-hmm. She's been through a few things in her short life, and I think we could learn some stuff from her. So, welcome, JoAnn.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome, JoAnn. So glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, and this is the question we ask every guest. Whose girl are you?
I am Donald and Arlene's youngest daughter.
Nice. And you grew up in South Carolina?
No, I was born in New Hampshire, and then we moved to South Carolina when I was like 7.
Okay.
So I kind of grew up in both. So the ladies from work always joke around with me like, you're Southern. You grew up here. And I'm like, come on. Like, I guess I could have both.
Yeah, there you go. Both is good. So how did you meet Stacey?
I can't wait to hear about this because I wonder if we have the same remembrance of this.
You came to Kaya's baby shower. That's the first time I recall. And then now I'm like, was it at Gates? Did we start seeing each other at Gates?
That's the question. You're going to have you answer your way, and then I'm going to tell you how I think I met you.
Come on, my brain is muddled. I know you can, and I remember you gave me a flax pack, and you had said, hey, and I knew Ed, but I didn't know, of you. And then I want to say you came to Gates.
Mm-hmm.
And then you came to Gates, and then we started talking, and then I didn't have a vehicle at the time. So you were like, hey, we're having Bible study at Hope. You want to come? I'll pick you up. And I was like, what? You would pick me up? Are you kidding? So we started doing that. And then you were making pasties at the time. That one day you called me and you were like, hey, I'm making pasty. I just put the pan in the oven. I have 30 minutes. I can come grab you and we can go back to my house and I'll bring you home later. And I was like, what? You would do that? Yeah, he came and got me from my house and we hung out and just chatted.
Yeah. And just haven't shut up.
Stop.
A match made in heaven.
Literally.
Yeah. So I did go to your baby shower
and
hadn't formally met you yet, but went to your baby shower because my husband is JoAnn's first cousin.
Okay.
So I had been invited, because that's how big families are.
Right.
And it was not too far from my house anyway. And the reason you got a flax pack is because I found out about the baby shower at the last minute. And that's what I happened to have because was she a winter baby?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I still have it.
Okay. And I think I gave you a small one too. A big one and a small one. Cause I was like, oh, a mama and a baby.
No, I think you just gave me the big one.
No, it must have been someone else. Sorry.
It's okay. I love it.
But the very first time I was at Gates. And Gates, when we talk about Gates is a recovery center right in New Ipswich.
Okay.
So I was at Gates Recovery. I had already come through, I was sober at the time, but I don't know why I felt led to go there maybe and share what I had already been through and just kind of camaraderie or whatever. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. In some support role or something.
Right.
So I just kind of went. It was kind of weird because I'd never been to an AA meeting or a recovery meeting or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I waited till I got sober before I went.
Mm-hmm.
But I was sitting there and JoAnn walked in the door and I thought, oh my word. Why is she here? It's literally, I can't deny the fact that I was like, and I didn't actually know your name. I just knew you were one of Donald and Arlene's. That you all look a little bit similar. Mm-hmm. So I knew what family she came from and I was like, oh, I wonder what this story's all about. So anyway, I just really enjoyed her sense of humor and we just got along swell, right from the beginning, right? We're just always cracking up at each other. Mm-hmm. Even through tough stuff, her sense of humor, I think, is her armor and but I get a kick out of it. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't remember even how you started hanging out at my house like that. Me calling you. Yeah. I know you became my pasty girl.
Yeah.
So even though she had 2 little kids.
Well, when we first started,
I
had one. So you seen me go through ugly. You were literally with me through the ugly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I only had one. And yeah, you came and Kaya was so great. And I would pack, like, help her, you know, but I didn't make the pasties. So, you know, I can bake, but I can't do all that. So I put them in the bags for her and put them in the other bags and stuff. But
Yeah.
and literally, like, you and I would have to say Virginia, my neighbor. I'm going to get emotional about it because it's
Okay.
like you two were like, I'm like, I don't want to say saved my life, but they kept me sane. Like, hands down, period. When I was in the ugliest part of my life, like, I am so thankful for you, Stacey, because you literally, like, I had never experienced somebody so like, oh, I'll come pick you up. Oh my word. Like, I would, you know, like, you literally didn't even care. Like, 20-minute ride one way, 20-minute ride home. And you were like, I'll come get you. And I just remember, like, seriously?
That's around the corner in New England.
Seriously. And I just remember being just absolutely flabbergasted that you were willing to, like, and man, that helped my mental state so bad because literally I didn't have a car.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting at home with a brand new baby, a brand new mom, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I literally tell people, like, you and Virginia were my saving grace.
I didn't even realize that until this moment because
Literally.
Honestly, I wasn't really trying to save you. I just really enjoyed hanging out with you.
No, but that's the beauty of it. Like,
Right.
it was, you know, it was genuine. Like, it was, you were literally, I tell people, like, you were my mentor, like, hands down, period. Like, you were the first one I told when I was pregnant with Ella.
Oh,
You were the first person that knew about that.
that's crazy.
And I was so scared to tell anybody, and you were the first person that knew.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't tell anybody else besides my family for 6 months.
Wow.
Literally, because we were still at Bible study, and
Yeah.
I remember I stood up because it was cold and I was wearing a coat, and Jamie was like, "Oh, you're pregnant?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "How far along are you?" And I'm like, 6 months. She's like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know." But no, it was like such an amazing friendship that formed from that. Like, I am so blessed by it.
And now I get to crash. I'm crashing at her house right now in South Carolina because I just flew my grandson down last night because they moved down, and then I kept the little guy for a couple days, which was pretty special and great, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But enough that I was happy to hand him off to Mom at the end of it because, you know, the plane sat on the tarmac for over an hour. The flight had to be longer because we went around a thunderstorm, yada, yada, yada. You know, his bedtime came and went. He started getting how 1.5-year-olds do past bedtime. And I was ready to hand off the package, but I'm so glad I got to crash here. So that's why I thought, I wonder if JoAnn would be willing to share part of her story.
I said, sure. And then I was like, ooh,
What does that mean?
I'm scared. I could talk till the cows come home, but
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you end up in New Hampshire?
Mm-hmm.
I was in a marriage for a long time that was riddled with addiction, and tried to get out of it well, I shouldn't say get out of it. I didn't know how to handle addiction because nobody talked about it. Nobody knew anything about it. And if it was, you shoved it under the rug and you just dealt with it, I guess, or not dealt with it. And, so I didn't really know how to handle what to do. And, so he struggled with it for pretty much our, long time. And it was rehab, out of rehab, back in rehab, just a lot of mess. And then I was seeing a counselor here, and we were living with my sister and her husband, and it had gotten to a really bad point of, he was on meth, and I didn't know what to do. And I went to a counseling session, and she was like, you need to go, because my sisters were always trying to get me to go up there to get away from him. And I was like, no, just wasn't the right time. And she was like, no, I think it would be really good for you. So I was gone in the next 2 weeks. I was out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious with that statement. So multiple sisters said, you need to get out, and you just ignore them or don't take that seriously. But when the counselor tells you it's time to get out, why is it different?
Cause, that's actually a good question. Cause I feel like with my sisters, it was coming from an emotional feeling because they were I don't want to, I mean, in it, but not in it, if that makes sense.
Do you feel like they weren't able to, they were more just like taking your side, period, and not looking at the whole picture?
For sure. And I didn't have peace about, like, you know, because it was, I needed a divorce, I need to do this, and I did not have peace about it. At the time, had no peace about it. And it was just, and especially, like, she was the first, like, the counselor was the first one I talked to after it really had came to a head. And I'm like, and who knows if I would have talked to my sisters, you know, instead of the counselor, maybe I would have listened to them too. But I mean, they were willing to take me, you know, so it was like, and it just clearly it was just orchestrated by God because it was time for me to go. And so I went up there and I was up there for.
Did you just throw your stuff in a car and leave?
Yeah. Well, it's actually funny because we were actually going camping in the coast, South Carolina for, in like 2 weeks, I was taken off of work, and my work situation at the time was horrendous too. So that needed to be taken care of too. But, I was supposed to just be going on vacation, and I told her, I said, look, like, I'm literally moving in 2 weeks. Like, I'm not coming back. So one of my sisters from New Hampshire was meeting us down there. And so we came up with a plan for me to pack all my stuff, and then her husband was going to drive my car back, and I was going to ride with her in her van, and we stopped and seen her son because he was in the Army at the time. And so it literally just like, it just worked. And so I was there for it wasn't a year. It was almost a year.
You had no kids at this point?
No kids. And it was just me. And, so then he was obviously still here. His mom was helping him out. He was in a bad spot, and then decided it was probably toward Christmas that he was going to go to rehab again. So he went to a 30-day rehab out in Timbuktu. I mean, it was out in the sticks. I mean, I remember driving there, and I'm like, who would have even known it was out there? But what an amazing rehab. Like, you just went to the place and you could just feel the presence of God in there. It was incredible.
This is South Carolina?
Yeah. And it was free. Like, free.
Wow.
And so he went there, and at this point, I still didn't understand addiction. And I never took the time to learn about it. We just didn't know. So, he decided, we talked about it, and he decided he wanted to come to New Hampshire. So I found an apartment. He graduated from there.
So he's pretty much like, I'm clean, I'm sober,
Yeah.
I want to work things out. Can I come to New Hampshire?
All the love bombing you can imagine, for sure. And I made a plan to fly down here when he graduated. We got a U-Haul, got all my stuff because I had everything to have a house because we had, a place. So we got a U-Haul, moved up here, got in the place. He had never been there in his life. So it was a totally new thing for him. And backtrack a little bit. So all this while he's still down here and I'm in New Hampshire, I was working for a chiropractor in Ringe, and across in the same office, there was a insurance company, and there was this lady that I kind of got to know, and I knew that her sister-in-law had a recovery group in New Ipswich. And God prompted me to, like, hey, maybe you need to go.
Like, learn about it?
Yeah. And I remember, I was so scared to ask her. I was like, So finally one day I got the courage and I asked her about it, and she's like, yeah, go. And so Renee lived like 30 seconds from this place. No joke. But finally was like, okay, like I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to go. So scared. And it happened to snow. So then I'm like, no, surely, like, they're not going to be open. Like, no, they're not going to be open. Why would they be open? There's like tons of snow. I'm not driving because I don't drive in the snow. So I'm like trying to talk myself out of it. Like, no, don't go, Finally, Renee's like, I'm just going to drive you. And I was like, yeah, drive me. So we got there and it was open. And I walk in, and it's a very small, just, little town. And it's a husband and wife. Their son has had addictions for years and been through the whole rigmarole. And they decided to open it because they didn't know anything about addiction, and nobody talked about it. And so you get together, have little what is the word?
Praise and worship.
Yeah,
first.
testimony, praise and worship, and then split off into men and women.
Mm-hmm.
And so I walk in and I was just like, oh my word, like, what am I doing here, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out it was me and Kathy that first night. My story out to her. And she was like, yeah, this is like, you know, this is a good place for you. And I was there the entire time I lived there. I mean, they seen me get pregnant. They were with me through my first pregnancy, my second pregnancy. I mean, it was like a little family, and I actually miss it like so much. And it's just such a thing to witness people bearing their soul out because they feel comfortable enough to be real with you and to sit there and realize like, wow, like I don't have issues. You know what I'm saying? Like, like the stuff that I complain about is like nothing in comparison, you know? And so, yeah, I was there for a long time. He became an alcoholic while I was, you know, while we were together through my 2 pregnancies. He ended up going to rehab when I was 8 months along with my second. And, she was 10 days late and waited for him to get out of rehab so he could be at the birth. Like, I swear to you. The day.
He went from rehab to the hospital.
Yep.
And was there how long before you actually delivered?
17 minutes.
Oh my word.
Like, like
That's
no
crazy.
joke. Like she literally waited for him because he was actually supposed to technically get out the next day. And so I went into labor and he called and he was like, you know, do you want me to come? So, and then the lady who owns the, you know, recovery center dropped everything she did. I mean, she was in New Ipswich, he was in Marlboro, I was in Keene, and then he was going to live at a sober house in Keene. And she dropped everything she was doing, went and got him, brought him to the hospital, waited at the hospital. He had to be back at the sober house at a certain time. And 17 minutes later after he walked in, she was born. And I was like, child? But yeah, I mean, there's so many things orchestrated by God that I just can't even like wrap my brain around half of the time. That's just incredible. So he never came back, stayed in sober living. And I do think that is a pivotal thing in his recovery that he went to sober living. I even, when I was there, became a recovery coach. I took the week-long class to become a recovery coach, learned so much about recovery and addictions that like, I'm just like, it just blows your mind. And I'm like, my biggest advice to people who have family members, whatever, in addiction, like learn about it. Take the time to understand what it means, because that will, you know, obviously you don't want it to become an enabler, but to understand like why, you know, it's crazy. But he's actually, he'll be going on 4 years sober in July, and we didn't end up together. He's obviously still up there. I'm still down here. He works in recovery. But it was, I do have to say, even though it didn't end the way that I thought it was going to end, it was incredible to see somebody recover after such a horrible, long years of a struggle. It was a blessing to see them come out of it.
And regardless if it ended up working out or not working out the way you wanted it to with your marriage, you still have 2 kids together. So it's their dad. So for him to come to a place of actual recovery, and you're right, the 30 days is just enough for someone who is truly addicted to kind of get their feet under them, but you throw them back out in the world, they're not able to give them all of the tools and enough momentum behind them for them to continue through in society without stumbling and falling, honestly.
No. And that's what, and he went, I mean, it was probably 5 times, and that literally was the pivotal. It was the sober living. And I even have to say, with places, rehabs to go, I mean, you can find so many rehabs if you search that are, because even the place he went to in Dublin was free.
Were you the one that helped find those, or did he find those, or did Gates find them?
Gates helped. Yeah. Gates helped with that. But even in, Dublin, it was just this little, like, 5. You went there with me.
Yeah, I actually went there to drop them off.
Yeah, she was with me when we went and dropped them off. And it's just these random little houses around, and you would never drive by and think that it was like a rehab. And like,
it looked like a farm.
Yes. And he even joked, like, who would have thought the most podunk rehab would have been the one that like was pivotal in my recovery. And it just cracks me up, because I'm like, you have these people who are sending people to $10,000, going in debt, because find these, and most of them will have, like, consignment shops where they're trying to raise money for it. Like, find one of those, because it literally feels like the ones that are the most, podunk little places that actually are doing something, which I'm not saying that the 10,000 ones don't do any, $10,000 ones don't do anything.
They're probably a little more bougie.
Oh, for sure. Like, you sauna and you do this and and I'm like, no.
But you don't have to. Like, God can work in the smallest, ruralest places. And
if you try a free one and it doesn't work, well, then send them to the $10,000 ones, but don't write off the free ones, because those places are, they're, like I said, you never, and even the one here that was called Faith Home. And there was this old lady who ran it. She had been running it for years with her husband. Her husband was dead, and she was old, and she actually died, I think a couple months ago. And I remember David saying, like, this lady would come in during church and you could just feel this Holy Spirit in her. Like, she was meant to do that. And like, those are like that. I love that. Like, I love that. And it was free. Like, they would sell hash. They do sell hash to raise money, and you can donate, and just, I don't know. I just love that kind of stuff.
So did you ever deal with any addiction personally?
No. Maybe addicted to TV shows, but and cigarettes. Let's be real.
Yeah.
But
so I got to go back to the rehabs for a minute.
Yeah.
Before we change topics. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like the ones that are doing it on a shoestring budget, selling, maybe having a consignment shop to raise the funds, they're doing this because of the heart.
Amen.
Their heart for helping others with an addiction.
Yep.
And it feels like the $10,000 ones are a little bit more for profit, and they have shareholders, and they have, a budget they have to meet, and they have income they have to make. And I don't know. That's just me. Is that?
No, I agree with you. And then the places that they're at, these, I can't even imagine how much they cost to just build the places. And it's like, that's not what it's about. It's like you're trying to, literally save people. Who cares if you're living in this old New England house,
Right.
Like, and not that my ex was ever at a fancy one, but I've known my very best friend, her husband was at a fancy one, and they sounded every day, it didn't. And I think he might have been there for a few months.
I think the moral is just because you spend more money doesn't give you a higher percentage of chance of recovery.
Right.
Exactly. I think a lot of it is timing too, and sometimes, I've been through the Recovery Coach Academy as well, and did some recovery coaching myself, because I feel like when you've been, like, JoAnn hasn't personally been there, like, her own self, but she learned enough about it and lived codependently to an addict for so long that she has still a really deep understanding of what that life is and what that looks like. But because it affects your life so deeply at some point, either by codependency or by personal addiction, that you're literally reaching down and pulling someone off, like, the little precipice to the pit of hell.
Yes.
And like, you're trying to do it before they die.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it feels like with some of them. Like, it might be their last chance to live and to come into relationship with Christ and live a life of freedom. And it's not just about quitting drinking,
right,
or quitting meth or quitting whatever. It's about living a life of freedom. That's what you're trying to do for people. That's what you're trying to impart to people through, like, the work of the Holy Spirit in their life. And this is all faith-based stuff. Like, all of it has been, the last one, I
I want to say it was faith-based. I don't know 100% though. So don't quote me. I'm not 100% sure the one in Dublin is, but I know. And honestly, like, I miss Kate so much. Like, I have been feeling it in my heart that, like, I want to, I don't know. I'm like, I have the recovery coaching, and I don't know if I have the heart to actually be a recovery coach because I'm such an empath. What is that?
Empath?
That I'm like, I don't know if I could actually help people, but I want to get back in that, like, and I don't know what to do that. I'm like, I miss it. I miss it so bad. And I'm like, there's so many recovery places around here. I'm like, even if I just volunteered, I'm like, I literally would just volunteer. There's actually one in Greenville that I'm like, kind of feel like messaging, but I'm kind of scared because it's like a men's one. But just the story and everything about it, I'm like, I literally just want to message them and be like, hey, can I volunteer? Like, this is going to sound weird. And this probably is weird, but I really miss being involved in that. Yeah. He's probably going to be like, okay, psycho, leave me alone. Go find a women's one. It doesn't have anything to do. I just like their story. I just love the story behind that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've even told people, you know, like, go to a Celebrate Recovery on a testimony night. You will just, it will blow your mind what people go through.
I think it blows it out of the water, that whole lie that the enemy whispers to each and every person in addiction. You're the only one that this is happening to. You're the worst of them. No one's as bad as you. Like, these are the kind of whispers that addicts hear when they're alone in their addiction. And then they get around a place like Celebrate Recovery. I've been to that as well. And yeah, to have them go around and give testimony. The only thing about Celebrate Recovery that I was a little bit like, is that you can have someone there that has an addiction to food.
Yeah.
Or an addiction to TV or something.
They do.
And it starts to get a little watered down for me because although those are addictions, I feel like they're in a whole different class.
And I think they actually do separate the groups now. It's like codependency, maybe substance abuse, and maybe all the other.
Oh, do they?
I think, again,
it was years ago that I went to one, and that's the only thing that kind of turned me off.
I think it might be separated now. But do you actually remember that one we went to in, was it Manchester?
How we got kicked out of?
There's a story there.
We got kicked out of a recovery group once.
Which is hilarious. Like, it was me, you, and Becca, and Kaya. I only had Kaya.
Oh, yeah.
I only had Kaya at the time, and we were like, hey, we should go to different recovery groups because, like, why not?
Check them out.
We're in it now, and now we know what they're like, and, you know, why not? So it was at a church.
Because this is what weirdos do for, like, Friday night fun when you're sober.
It makes it even better. It was at a church, and it was in the basement.
In Nashua.
Was it Nashua? And we go.
Manchester? Did you say Manchester?
It was Manchester or Nashua?
I thought it was Nashua.
No, it could have been Nashua.
Trashua.
Yeah. Now. They kicked us out. Just kidding.
We done with you.
It was in the basement, and Kaya, she wasn't very old. I'm trying to remember how.
She was a toddler. She was probably like one and a half, something like that.
And I could have been pregnant even.
Probably.
I don't know. And so we go down to the basement, we go to the bathroom, you know, we're getting looked at, and we go, you know, down. No, we didn't go to the bathroom first. We went downstairs because it was in the basement, and I had went to the bathroom.
And I went to sit down and start singing.
And did I leave Kaya with you? Because I don't think I had, or did I have Kaya with me?
No, I had Kaya.
Okay, so then I come out of the bathroom, and I get pulled into this separate room.
Mm-hmm.
Pulled into this separate room, and I was like, I literally got in, went to the bathroom, and I come out, and I get pulled, and I'm like, ew. Oh my word, like, I'm not a bad person. What did I do? And she's like, you can't have kids here. Like, we don't, you know. And I was like, really? And I don't even remember the reasoning. Do you remember the reasoning?
All I know is Rebecca tapped me on the shoulder and said, we got to go. And I obeyed. I just like left. And when we got outside, I was like, what the heck is going on? And they're like, we just got kicked out because we have a child. Because we have a kid with us. Yeah. And I'm like, you're going to kick out a lady with a kid who's coming to a recovery thing at a church? Okay.
Right? Like, here I am trying to get help. And, you know, imagine if I did have a serious drug problem, on top of having a baby.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to just be, and I'm looking for help, and you're just going to be like, nope.
Yeah.
There was no, here's a better place for you.
Yeah.
Here's something else we know about. Nothing. It was.
You're like, hey, we don't usually let kids here, but we'll let you stay this time, but don't bring the baby back next time. Nothing. It was like, and we were like,
we weren't though, like, we act like we were all offended, but the reality is we were like busting a gut laughing as we were walking to the car because we were just trying to check out some new places. We weren't in a place of desperation.
No, but it just made me were like, if I was in a place of desperation, like, that would have totally just, that would have been horrendous. It's like, give me a chance, like, hey, don't take the baby back next time, but you can stay, And I'm thinking of Gates, like, my children are just running through the whole place. There was that video Kathy just shared the other day of Derek playing. And here's Ella's little ponytail going through the bottom of the video. And I'm like, there's my kids. They just, but like, it was like a family though. Like, I didn't have a babysitter very much. And, they didn't care. My kids loved it. Like, they absolutely loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I forgot. I actually have forgotten about that story. That's so funny.
So I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You've used the term codependency a couple times. What is codependency?
Well, I don't know if I could tell you the dictionary.
What would be your definition?
My definition would be, be independent on somebody for your happiness, your everything, and not being able to separate yourself from them regardless of the situation because you're scared of the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good working definition, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
And it's a scary place to be, like I could have left. I did leave a few times and then, I'm sitting in a place of I'm living with my sister with a 1-year-old and I'm pregnant again. And like, I can't be in their space, this isn't cool. So I go back and he's still drinking horribly every day. And actually, I do have to share this because the one thing about his recovery was it gives me goosebumps every time I talk about it. So this had been probably 7-8 years ongoing that I was dealing with his addictions. And at this point, I obviously knew because I had been going to Gates for a while now. I knew more about it and I want to say understanding, but I don't want that to sound like I was enabling, which I'm sure there was points obviously where I was enabling. But when you're in that with kids, like, and you don't have a job and you're, like what do you do?
It's pretty vulnerable, really.
It's horrible. And it's a scary thing to admit to people, like, this is the life I'm in. Like, it's embarrassing. It's scary and it's embarrassing to be like, this is what I'm putting up with because I don't have another option. And I remember I was 8 months or 9 months along with Ella and I was sitting on my couch and he had went to work. And I remember just crying out to God, like, I cannot do this anymore. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't be in this situation. I don't have anywhere to go. I don't know what to do. I'm just broken and just scared. And I'm about to have another child with this person. And the next day, or no, it was the next day. He went to work and it was like 12 o'clock. He called me and he was like, hey, I'm going to rehab.
Oh.
And I was like, what?
Wow.
And he was like, yeah, my boss is going to bring me and, Gates found a safe station for me to go to and I'm going to be home in like 15 minutes and I'm packing my bag and I'm leaving.
Wow.
And it was literally that fast. And he walked out of my life and I sat there like, okay, God, you showed out. Now what?
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah, because even though he was an addict, he was still working and bringing home money, and now there's no money, and now he's gone, and now you're like weeks away from delivery.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, God, when you want to work, you know how to work.
Yeah.
And I was like,
so what did you do? What was your first step? Realizing that he was gone and doing that?
Calling Kathy and being like, dude.
Yeah. What about me?
Yeah. Like, what what do I do? Like, I cannot, like, I was literally a month away from having a baby.
Yeah.
And, so she happened, I'm telling you, the whole thing was like, it was God, like, because then she found out about it's called TANF. She'd never heard of it before. It's like helping needy families. And she had never heard about it prior to this, just happened to hear about it from some lady. And so I immediately got on the paperwork to do that. And I ended up getting it. I got approved for it like the day after I had Ella.
Wow.
Literally. And so one of the churches, I know Hope paid for my rent 1 month. Just, I mean, I as hard as it is to be a single mom, the amount of support that wraps around you when you need it is phenomenal. And it just makes you sit back and be like, wow, God, like you are the ultimate provider and you are here. Like it's just, I mean, this was almost 4 years ago and I still sit here to this day. Like it is incredible how I got through that. But I mean, the churches, you know, like I remember Hope, I think, was it you or was it, cause what's his name that used to work with you?
It was me.
Ethan. Yeah, it was you. Cause I was thinking you and Ethan.
And I think it was Ethan as well. And I pretty much just like, is there any way this is something we can help with?
Yeah. And I mean, I went to their Bible study. I didn't even go to their like actual church. I went to you guys' Bible study and they paid and it was people that.
It's the universal church.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
And, but I just remember being like, really? Like just, and then, yeah.
Well, I didn't know if they would either, honestly. I knew there was a need and I knew the exact amount. And I just kind of went to the elders and said, is this something that you're willing to help with? It's this much money. Like she needs it by this day because like rent has to be paid. And
and
she's trying her best. And they were like, absolutely. They didn't even hesitate for 1 second. You know, let us know if she needs anything else.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
And so, and then I got on the TANF, which basically gives you a certain amount of money. So it's a whole year, which is incredible for anybody who, like any single mom.
Peace of mind.
Like, oh my word. And so obviously, I mean, you have to give me your whole life history and, you know, the whole rigmarole. So the only thing that with that one is the catch is you have to file for child support.
Oh, okay.
So if you're not willing to file for child support, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about it is they take care of all of that.
Yeah.
So it's basically, and that's the thing. It's when
you just check the box saying like, yeah, you will. And then they'll be like, okay, we'll do that.
And I still get child support with that, even living here. Like it's still through that. I've never had to do anything with the child support. So yeah, and they give you a certain amount of money, which was enough to pay my bills. And then obviously I got on food stamps. I had help with, I mean, the amount of help that I had in that place is just it's phenomenal. Like I do have to say, compared to New Hampshire and South Carolina, with the help for a single parent, like New Hampshire is unbelievably better.
Really?
Unbelievably better. I mean,
come back.
Right? I mean, you talk to people, you know, you call a number and, you know, well, make sure, you know, you would qualify for this, get that, you know, make sure you apply for this. And I was like, dude, you know, like I actually started feeling guilty the amount of help that I had up there. I was like, this can't be right. Like, are you sure? You know, like it was crazy. So then you get that. So the TANF, you get that for a year and they basically give you money on like your EBT account. And I paid all my bills with that. And, then after a year, you have to start looking for a job. So I literally got on it right when Ella was born and I got to be home with her and Kaya for a year. And then you have to take these kind of classes. And because COVID happened, I, got to do all of them at home. Usually I would have just literally the way things worked out. Like I would have normally have had to find a babysitter, go to Keene, do all these classes in Keene, come home. And because COVID happened, I got to do everything at home. Like I didn't even have to go to Keene. And after I got done with those, then Kathy from Gates was like, hey, I needed an administrative assistant. Like, would you like to work at Gates? And I was like, yes, please. And so with her helping me, it was like, you know, and I kind of wanted an office job when I moved back down here because I knew eventually I was going to come back because 5 winters there was plenty. And, so she was like, yeah, like I need someone to, get the, put the things in, whatever, do all the things.
The grants and all that.
Yeah. And so that was another blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that worked out and it was 10 minutes from where I lived. But yeah, so then I moved down here and you call people here and you get the wrong number. Oh, you have the wrong number.
Click.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not help. They're not like, I'm just like, you guys are not helpful. Like,
what happened to Southern hospitality?
Seriously.
Yeah,
I'm
us Northerners, we get a bad rap. Like we're so harsh, but look how helpful we are.
You were like, for real. Like, I'm like, I just, and it, not to be dumb, but I expected the same amount of like, here. Yeah. If you don't, make sure you apply. Nope. It was like, I tried to get, help to pay my rent. And she was like, well, are you getting kicked out? And I'm like, no. And she's like, well, why, what? And I'm like, cause I want my own place. It was like, it almost had to be like a bad thing for me to get help with my rent. And I'm just like what? People just can't have their own place nowadays. Like it was so weird. So I was like, whatever, like I'll pay for it myself. It's fine. Like, don't even worry about it. But yeah. And then, so then I moved down here, lived with my sister and her husband for 6 months. God provided a place that I can actually afford.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually her sister-in-law.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Port Lavon, I lived in.
That's how we met.
Yeah.
That's how you met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got a place here right in town and I absolutely love it. And I'm decorating cakes again. And I
nice.
love it. Absolutely love it.
That's awesome.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say would be one of the hardest things about being a single mother?
Probably making all the decisions by myself and not having someone to like spew to when I've had a hard day.
Mm-hmm.
Or to be like, go see your dad. He's going to whip you.
Someone to help with discipline when they're, I've heard that. It's hard. One of my other friends who was a single parent for a long time said the hardest thing is having to be the mom and the dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like
for sure.
The decision making, I'm a very indecisive person. So it's rough for me to always have to be the one doing the deciding because I'm not great at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I Googled it before we came on today. I was looking up stuff about single parents.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I found this one that I wanted to read. Where did I leave my phone? Oh, it's behind my chocolate.
It's so little.
It's one of those fold phones. So I found some real like statistics and stuff like that. But I was, how when you start Googling, I like to see like what people are typing,
Mm-hmm.
So I start typing, how do single moms, and I wanted to see like what popped up. So it said, how do single moms deal with loneliness?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then it has this little article, how to survive being a single mother. So I want you to react. Tell me how helpful this list is to you.
Okay.
All right. Number 1, prioritize your health and well-being.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got it?
You got it.
Maintain a blameless mindset.
Oh, gee.
Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Build a support system. Okay.
That's
good.
That's good.
Okay. Think about what you bring to the table.
Everything.
Ask for help if you need it. It should say ask for help when you need it.
Yeah. Because you're always going to need it. But that's a tough one though. As a single parent asking for help, I struggle with feeling like a burden.
Yeah.
Like I have and I've gotten better. Like I've gotten a lot better and I've learned like Virginia, my old neighbor. Like I remember many a times calling her because Ella, oh my word, that child wouldn't take a nap to save her life. And I remember calling her bawling can you take my baby? She won't take a nap and I don't have the energy to put her for a nap. She'd be like, yeah, bring her over. And I'd bring her over to Virginia and she would rock her. I mean, she would have kept her all night if I let her. She would rock her for hours and which I still had Kaya, but I would get a little mental break.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I feel like that helped me and I didn't want to. Like it took everything in me to
You
calm
didn't
her.
ask until you were having a breakdown.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Number 6. Take responsibility and be selective. Don't let anyone take advantage and force you into a decision. Okay?
Who put this list together?
This is a WikiHow, and this is literally 2023, so keep that in mind when I read this next one, okay? The next one, check phone books for helpful resources. Alright? Phone books. Number 8, get out of a bad relationship. Just get out.
That's why we're in this spot.
Number 9, believe in yourself. Ignore people who are critical to you.
Yes.
12, keep your home clean and sanitary. And it shows a woman in a bathtub. So that's extra funny to me because it's like keep your home clean and sanitary, but also just take people baths.
Cleanliness means health. She sits in a bathtub.
Learn CPR.
Oh,
that's probably good.
Yeah.
Take parenting classes in your free time.
Oh yeah. Who's going to watch my children while I take the parenting class? Do you offer babysitting?
Remember, each day is created anew.
Oh, that's sweet.
You are the architect of your own life.
Yes.
Foster dignity and self-confidence for yourself. I don't think this is like biblically based at all.
At all.
So I would say if you want to like remember each day is created anew, maybe his mercies are new every morning.
Yeah.
Foster dignity and self-confidence for yourself. Humble yourself that you may be lifted up.
Yeah.
Respecting yourself helps you create a character building environment for your child.
Fight loneliness.
Fight it. When you get lonely, paint, draw art. Paint, draw, read, sing, or mend something. You can also call a friend or a family member.
Mend something.
Mend. This is 2023.
Yeah.
They copied this straight out of like 1950.
Learn from your children. Because that is a continuum that is ever evolving.
True.
So, yeah, that's it. So then there's
a question. The child.
There's questions and answers then. So other people are questioning to this article, and it's just like, well, how do you deal with a child who wants to live with the other parent and throws a tantrum? Like, this article's not helpful. Here's the real question. Right? But the people that are responding are the same people that wrote the article.
Oh,
because they're just like, oh, don't force the kid to be with you. Like, let him go to the other parent. We don't know if he's an addict or not, but it's fine.
Wow, yeah, it's fine. No big deal.
So, sorry. I thought
funny.
that was just great.
That's hilarious.
So that's the kind of advice you're going to find if you try to Google, like...
I don't know if I don't think I've ever Googled that.
No?
No.
I was Googling, like, what percentage of kids in the U.S. are being raised by a single parent, and it was the highest of any, like, developed country. It's 23%.
Oh, my word.
23% of kids are being raised by a single parent, and of those, 80% of those kids are being raised by their mother.
Yeah.
See, but, like, there's two different meanings to single parents, because I feel like, you know, people are calling themselves single parents when they're switching back and forth every week. You know what I'm saying?
So instead of a co-parent?
Yeah, you're co-parenting. You're not like, yeah, you have the kids by yourself, but you're not like, you know, when I think of a single parent, I think of someone it's full-time, 24/7. They don't switch. Like, you're in it, you know, knee deep, waist deep.
Neck deep.
Eyeball deep.
Depends on the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, some days are better than others. But yeah, like,
so that's
like
interesting. So the definition to you of a single parent is the parent that, like, you better be parenting that kid 99% of the time by yourself.
Yeah, because I feel like that's co-parenting when you're switching back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. Maybe it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm just salty because I am a single parent and I can't switch back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. People use it to be like, oh, I'm like, dude, like, if you're like in it, you're.
Maybe we need to come up with some new terminologies.
Maybe.
It's kind of like the whole diabetes thing. I like always hate that type 1 diabetes is called type 1 diabetes. Like there's type 1 and type 2 and it makes it sound like they're like very similar and they're not at all.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Mm-hmm.
See? No, because just really, really briefly, because this isn't about diabetes, but like type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease that you do nothing to get and it just happens to you. They think there's a genetic component and that's that. Your pancreas islets shut down. They quit producing insulin, so you have to take insulin.
Mm-hmm.
Type 2 diabetes, yes, has a genetic component, but has usually environmental factors that play a part, like obesity and poor diet, and you become insulin resistant, which just means it's not being uploaded. So if you change your stuff, a lot of times, most of the time, it can resolve the problem on its own. It's something you did to yourself, where one is you did nothing to yourself.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wouldn't have never done that.
And for anybody listening, if you didn't hear our podcast about type 1 diabetes, go check it out.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting that this discussion started off with addiction stuff and then led to single parenting. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, this is the story of people. A lot of times addiction does lead to single parenting, whether it's because there was an overdose and a death, or the relationship just for one reason or another didn't survive what that whole storyline was.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any insight on like what was why that didn't turn out the way you thought it was going to turn out? Because we already know that he did come into a place of recovery and he has been for years now.
Mm-hmm.
So like you stuck with him through the whole addiction thing, and then kind of like what happened there that like led us from the addiction story to the single parenting story. You know what I mean?
I mean, in his terms, he didn't want to be married anymore.
After he got sober?
Mm-hmm. And I can't wrap my head around that to this day. Like, I'm like, that's the crazy thing about my story, is usually if it's like an addiction story where one's, the addict and one's not, it's always the one that's not that leaves,
Mm-hmm.
And there was never a doubt in my mind, and never even thought that he would have recovered and wouldn't have chosen me and our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like, never in my mind did I ever think that would have been the outcome. And maybe it's naiveness or there was hope there. I don't know. But man, it gutted me.
Mm-hmm.
It gutted me. And there's still times when I'm just like I struggle so bad with self-worth. Like, I wasn't even good enough for like that. Like, that's just, it's rough. And then to grieve somebody that you still have to see every week.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Like, I wouldn't. And when I say see, I mean like FaceTime. Like, he still lives in New Hampshire and me and my girls live down here. So he FaceTimes twice a week. And man, after everything dissolved and everything, like it was so hard for me to just hear him like talking to my girls and, be in the background, like, cause we get along. Like, we can get along like you wouldn't believe, when we are talking. Mm-hmm. And it still just baffles me that like, and obviously it's not healthy to be like, it was me and there's something wrong with me. And I don't, it's not something I struggle with every day, but there's obviously moments of times when I'm just like, why couldn't I have been good enough? Mm-hmm. Like, I fought with you through the trenches. Like, I lifted you off the floor. I forgave you. And I literally, like, yeah, I didn't have an addiction, but I went through it with him. Mm-hmm. And in the end, and that's what his words were. It's like, I wanted to love you, but I didn't know how. And I'm like, how can you not love somebody who literally went through hell and back with you? Like, and again, I don't focus on it all the time because it is what it is, but like,
I am getting goosebumps right now because I'm like, as you were like listing all that off, I lifted you up off the floor. I've been with you through hell and back. Like, I'm like getting goosebumps because I'm like, this is Christ calling out to us. Like, all the things that he did for us, that he gave his life for us, that he's been there through thick and thin, that he's forgiven us, and I'm like getting chills over here. I'm just like, how can you not love me? It's like, I mean, I do love him. But I didn't always, right?
No, but no, I can't. I've healed somewhat from it, but I still just can't. I just don't, like, how could you not just?
It might not be something you ever really understand.
No, and I don't think I ever will.
No.
And because, most of the stories, like I said, the person that doesn't have the addiction leaves,
Right.
And it's, my story's so, I don't want to say strange, but different in a way. Does that make sense? Like, it's just different because that's not usually definitely how.
Well, a lot of times, both of the people in the relationship are addicts.
Mm-hmm.
That's typically, like, especially when it's long term like that, the other one ends up going into the addiction with the person, right? They drag them down, and that didn't happen. And then I remember, like, cause I walked through a lot of it with you, I remember thinking, and I thought the same thing. If we can just figure out a way to, like, get him in the right place, to convince him, to get him sober, then he can be the dad that he needs to be. Then he can be the husband that he needs to be. Then he can, get on with things. And I thought the same thing. I thought if we can just get that to happen, like, what do we need to do? What can we do? And I mean, a lot of prayer and just like hang in there because, like, he's going to get sober. And then, he does, and you don't get the reward of it.
No.
You did all the hard work of it.
Yeah.
But you don't get the reward of it. And that just, it feels like someone just held something out to you and then just snatched it back at 100%. The last minute.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like such a ripoff.
It does. I mean, in a certain sense, there's like a, cause obviously, like I said earlier, I got to see somebody recover.
Sure.
And if I would have had the life, as I put quotes, that I thought I was going to have, get married, have kids, have this perfect, life, I would have never seen God move the way that I seen God move in my life.
Yeah.
So that right there, even though there's days when I'm like, why, Lord, why did I have to go through that? Why? And then he like kicks me in the head. He's like, duh, because you got to see me. Like, you seen me work so many miracles, like, around you that you have a testimony to tell people.
Yeah, you do.
And I got goosebumps.
Yeah, you do.
And it's like, and I barely touched on the things that he has done in my life since then, and so it's like a catch-22 where it's like, sometimes I do struggle with like, why? And then the other, he slaps me in the head and he's like, duh, like, look,
in your weakness, I'm made strong.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. And I'm like, and he's still here, and like, I can have an apartment, that I'm paying for on my own. And because we're not great down here with helping single moms, I do have help, but I don't have much, but like, he's been with me, and he's, my bills are paid. I have so much to be thankful for, and I am blessed. And it's like,
and your girls are adorable.
Yeah. And they're so good. And it's, like I said, it's hard, but it's worth it. And I do have to remind myself, like, dude, like, it's worth it. Like, I mean, I can't wait to tell my girls when they understand how much God was there for us, when they're older and they can understand. Like, I can't wait, because like, it really is like, it's mind blowing.
What does life look like for you? Like, what's your dreams and aspirations moving forward? Or are you still kind of in survival mode, living day to day?
I'm still in survival mode, and I'm actually like, we're getting into like a different, with Kaya going to school soon, and it's going to change. And I'm like, I'm a little nervous. I mean, they've been going to daycare since, Ella was 1.
So they're pretty close in age too. How
18 months apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I look at the pictures of them when, right when I had Ella, and I'm like, dude, like, they were so, like, Kaya was so little when I had Ella, and I'm like, how did I, like, that was crazy. But I was telling Stacey earlier, like, I was in such survival mode when they were that little that thank God for Snapchat memories, because I would not remember literally nothing. I have very few memories of, and I think, and even going back to addiction and living in that, like, I really believe that, like, my brain either God took the memories of how bad it was at the time from me, or I was in such, like, I just blocked them out. And I'm, like, so grateful for that I don't remember all the bad things, because.
Have you gotten therapy?
Not since I, had it before I moved. But I have met so many people since I moved back. And that's another thing, like I say, oh, I never wanted to live in New Hampshire. Like, ugh.
I said that too.
Oh, and it's funny because I go back now and I'm like, those were the best, like, again, hell. Okay. and I'm not exaggerating. It was hell. But on the flip side, I met so many amazing people. It's just this crazy that, like, your life can be so insane, but at the same time, you're meeting people, you're seeing God work, and you're witnessing all this amazing stuff that it's like, dude, the literally best 5 years of my life, hands down. Like, hands down, I would not trade it for the world.
Yeah.
Like, and I 100% needed that. Like, God knew. Like, he knew. That's where I was going to go, and that's what I needed, and the people that I needed to meet. But now, since I moved back, I've met so many different people working in a grocery store that, like, I have like 5 counselors. And it's true. And they're all from different backgrounds. And, one of them, she was another mentor to me, which I actually need to call her because I haven't talked to her in forever, but she had been divorced. She's seen her husband remarry. Like, she was with him for 20 something years, had babies with him, did the whole thing. And so she was in my life now. And I'm like realizing this as I'm talking, like, she was in my life at the moment when I needed her because I was going through a divorce. She had been there. There was many a times I called her, like, I feel crazy. I'm fine one day, and then the next day, just one thing sets me off, and I'm sobbing, and I feel insane because why am I still feeling these feelings? And no, she talked me through it. She was like, look, like, dig into the word. Like, she's total Christian woman, just beautiful lady. And just, she prayed for me every single day. She lifted me and my girls up and I'm like, that was meant to be. Like, that was clearly meant to be that
when
I
you
met
walk
her in the
with
moment.
God, that's the way it is, right? And you're not always seeing it in the moment.
No.
A lot of times you're looking back on that path and you can see it, but not always in the moment. But it's like the more it happens, the longer you do it, the more you just, like, trust it.
No, for sure.
You just start to
that's
trust
so
that.
funny that as I'm talking, I just realized, like, that's where I needed her in that moment. So I joke that I have 5 counselors, but I really do. Like, I have a very good group of ladies that I can just talk with, but at the same time, I can kind of give you insight why I don't have a counselor right now. I was trying to find one, but I actually found my oldest daughter a counselor. I found her one because she was 18 months old when her dad left to go to rehab, and she struggles with change, and the poor kid in the little span of her life, had her dad leave. We moved down here lived with my sister, moved into her own place, went to a new daycare. Just a lot has happened in her life. And the last time he was here in December, when he left, it was like Christmas, her birthday, just everything. She was a mess. And I'm like, what do I do? You know, like I can't continue to live this way. She was just, you know, I don't want to say angry, but she just wasn't, you know, a happy person. And God laid it on my heart to find her a counselor. And I did. And because I was like, I don't want to be dealing with this when she's 15.
Right.
Because that's just scary. Like, cause, you know, I don't want to think that far ahead, but at the same time, like, you know, and I do have to say, like, it has been very helpful. Mm-hmm. Like, she's so shy, she won't go in there by herself with him. So me and Ella, I feel so bad because he's like counseling both of my kids for the price of one, but God bless him.
Probably sometimes you.
God bless him. But I mean, and even me, like, I thought, like, that sounds silly to like have a counselor for a 5-year-old. Like, I
actually think you're really wise for seeing that the kid was struggling with stuff and getting it dealt with earlier. Cause I think the earlier you can deal with it, it doesn't necessarily like, I can't think of the word.
Fester?
Yeah, that's a good word. It doesn't fester and then turn into something more, right? And because we don't want to necessarily look at our cute little 5-year-old and picture them being a 15-year-old because that freaks you out a little bit. But if you deal with it now, they're going to have a better time, an easier time if they have the coping skills and they've unwound some of that damage maybe that happened early on. So I think it's wise to do it when they're young if you could find somebody and afford it, because is that where you were going with that? The reason you don't have a therapist is because you're paying for her therapist? Yeah.
And she, you know, she comes before me. And like I said, I have, you know, I'm adult. I can talk to people. I have a great group of people that I can talk to. And, you know, if it comes to the time when, you know, she's good and I can afford one for me, you know, maybe, but in all the other things that factor into it, a babysitter, you know, the time and obviously, like I said, it could be, if I felt the need that it was that important to me right in this moment, I 100% would. But I just felt in my own person that it was more important to focus on her right now. Mm-hmm. And it has been so insightful, which, I mean, some of the days we're in there and she's bouncing around. I'm like, why are we even here? Like, I'm so embarrassed. This kid just like will not just calm down, talk to him. But it's been like the last 2 times we went, she was in there with him by herself for the last 15 minutes. And it seems to be helping. And so now I want to start focusing on her going to school because she does not want to go to school. And she still struggles with being left at daycare. Mm-hmm. But no, like 100%. Like it sounds, like I said before, it sounds silly to have a 5-year-old in counseling.
It doesn't
like,
to me.
Now that I see now that we've been, I mean, it's probably been 5 months that we've been.
It's not shocking. It's not shocking either that she is dealing with, and they don't think about it, but subconsciously it's not shocking that she's dealing with some abandonment issue stuff. Because from her point of view, someone left. From her point of view, you know, regardless of what the situation, circumstances were that their little brains can't understand, there still is an abandonment issue there, right? Yeah.
And that's what he said, you know, even in her little span of, she's had a lot of change and it's hard for her and she knows what's going on, but as a 5-year-old, she doesn't know how to process it.
Right.
And so, you know, learning about emotions and learning about all the stuff will prayerfully help her to process, talk about it instead of the opposite, you know? And he's not a Finn guy, but his family's like integrated into the Finn community. And that's why I was like, you know, he doesn't take Medicaid, but I was like, I don't care. Like, I would rather go to somebody that you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of integrated into the community than just some random Joe that you don't know, you know?
You gotta spend the first 3 months trying to explain our culture and Yeah.
Yeah. And it was so funny because he totally knows. And he's like, well, if I see you, at a function, like, I'm not going to talk to you.
Yeah.
Laugh. And he's
Yeah.
like, for reasons, if you
Yeah.
don't want people to know. Like,
Confidentiality.
I could care less.
Absolutely.
No, it's funny because that's what he was talking about. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
if you know me, I don't care. People can know I bring my kid to counseling. No
Yeah.
skin off my back.
Yeah.
Yeah. JoAnn's not someone I would consider super private.
No.
She's sort of an open, that's the attractive thing. I think that's one of the attractive things about you to me is that there's no pretenses.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to know what has helped me with that? Recovery groups.
Yeah. Yeah.
Recovery groups.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually started a woman, not really a recovery group at my church here, but kind of a women's group. And, it was all, because obviously at Gates, it was not all Finnish people, and there was other people. Well, this one at Eastside obviously was all, Finnish people. And they're just like, don't want to talk. And I'm just first day, just just cute, and I'm bawling, and I'm like, here's my ugly cry. But at the same time, that was when I was going through, like, we were just starting the whole, like, found out he didn't want to be married, all that.
Yeah.
So I was in an ugly place.
Yeah.
And they seen it. Like, I was like, I don't really want to share. And I'm like, dude.
But you know what? Can I interject something into that?
Course.
They saw the releasing of all of those feelings and emotions and problems and like all the things at the beginning of you said this was the first or beginning of this group.
Mm-hmm.
So good. So good for you for doing it because they can say, you know what? Maybe I can share my ugly because someone else shared their ugly and the whole group didn't pounce and like kick her out or, they hopefully the group supported you.
Did they jump on you?
Did they jump on you or did they support you?
Oh no, of course they supported me. I mean, which the funny thing about one of the rules was you couldn't like go comfort anybody,
Really?
doing their ugly cry because it was just the way she set it up was like because if you start comforting, you just let them do their ugly thing.
Yeah.
You just let them ugly cry.
Yeah.
So there's so many women that like, I just wanted to come hug you, but the rule. And I just had to laugh. I was like, and then there was other people who did it. And it was hard to just like, sit in your own spot and not like want to like, like, I'm so sorry, like hug the person,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called holding space. It's hard to hold space for people when they're in a vulnerable, painful moment. But I really love the no hugging rule. I'm going to implement that in my future groups.
We need to have a little chat about that.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do. I'm going to interject right here. We do. You have this no hugging, no physical touch. You go for massages. How often?
Once a month for 90 minutes.
So once a month for 90 minutes, somebody's touching all over you.
Right.
That's therapeutic, Lois.
Oh, it's your touch tank is full. That's why you don't need hugs.
I only need 90 minutes a month.
90 minutes a month. She's
90 minutes of hugs a month is a lot. How many people get 90 minutes of hugs a month?
Right.
No, I don't know. The reality is there's probably some sort of armor I've created for myself to protect myself from vulnerability, if you really want the honest answer about that. Yeah. And I'm fully aware of it, but I don't want to deal with it. So mind your business.
Stay on your own side of the table.
I mean, stay in your own lane.
I kind of get that.
Yeah.
When you're like on the verge of like having a bad day and you want to cry, but you're like, no, I need to hold this in. Like, I can't. And then someone's like, how are you doing today? And you just, or hug you and you just like lose it.
Yeah.
Especially someone that really knows you and they know you're going through something and they look at you and say, are you okay?
And you just,
there's like, I don't know. My closest friends are like great about it though, because like, they'll know, like when my mom was dying, for instance, I had they started knowing every time I came back from visiting them, I'd kind of be in a bad place for a while. And so they'd always want to like check in on me, of course, like good friends do. But sometimes it'd be at church. And the difference with me at church is I work at church. So I'm at work.
Yeah.
So I'm in a different headspace. a lot of times, and they'll come in and be like, how are you? And I just put my hand up, like, not right now. Not right now, Linda. Not right now. And they just kind of like nod, like, I get it. And like, ask me after church, like when I'm done working, and I'll spill and I'll cry and I'll let you hug me and I'll do all the things. But, there's a time and a place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Because you're fragile.
Oh, I've ugly cried at my work in the last year.
Yeah.
Plenty of times.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Plenty of times, like sobbing on my good friend, like just sob, like from the depths of your soul. Like, I'm at work, like,
Yeah.
But again, just back to the whole, like,
That's the reality.
they know you. And I'm a type where I need to talk about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a talker, and I need to, like, instead of me processing it with it myself, I need to have someone to talk to, because that helps me process things.
I get that. I am the same way.
And so if I'm sitting there, like, in my head, I actually am hurting myself more by mulling it over in my head by myself than if I could just have someone to be like, hey, give me 10 minutes and let me just chat your ear off or bawl to you for whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's been plenty of times at work that I'm just sitting there. I'm like, whatever, just go, and she just holds me and I just sob, which I actually haven't done that in a good while, but it was when I was going through it. I did. I just bawled.
Do you think you're going to cry when Kaya goes to her first day of school?
I didn't think I was going to, because they've been in daycare for so long. And as a single mom, it's going to sound rough, but as a single mom, when they first started going to daycare, I was like, here, bye, take them.
Mm-hmm.
I had no emotion besides Ella screaming for the first week. That hit my heartstrings, but otherwise I was like, here you go. Cause this had been, Ella was a year old when they started going. So I had been literally at home with them 24/7 with both of them for an entire year. And I don't think in that year I got many breaks at all.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely did I get to go, which Virginia every once in a while would watch them if I ran to the store, but it was literally like going, it's a chore. You're going grocery shopping, coming home.
Yeah.
And so when I dropped them, I was like, here you go. Have them. Please have them,
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, just in the last couple of months thinking about her going to school, I'm like, man, I might actually, because like, this is like school, like she's growing up, and like, I'm trying to picture my little baby, like going, so
and homework is in your future.
I'm not looking for. Actually,
you know how to bring life to the party.
Actually, that actually might not be too bad for me to like have something to focus on when I get home. Cause that's like when I'm home and I'm bored, my loneliness kicks in like hardcore. Yeah. So I'm like, that actually might not be terrible for me. Mm-hmm. And I say that now, ask me in 3 years. I'll probably be like, I hate this, but it might actually not be terrible for me. But yeah, back to her going, I'm like, I actually probably am going to get emotional about it. Yeah. And I never expected that. Did not expect that.
Do you think that in the future, no timeline or anything like that, but at some point in your life, do you ever see yourself getting remarried?
100%. For sure. I want that. Like, and lately it's been on my heart that I want to find somebody that can be an example to my girls, to show my girls that, how do I say this without, I don't want to sound mean, I don't want to sound ugly, but like that there can be men in your life that
don't leave.
Yeah. And that can be there for you, and that they can.
A godly example.
Yes. Like.
Yeah. Of a husband, of a father.
So, yes. And we can change that mentality before they're too much older, if that makes sense. Like that's been on my heart like a lot lately. And I'm like, I want that for them so bad. And obviously for me too, because I was little, like I was going to get married. I was going to be with that same person for the rest of my life. Like I, as the youngest of 11, I like people. I've been around people. And it's another thing I've learned about myself lately that like I have been around people. Sounds dumb, but all my life, like I was the youngest of 11, there was always people around me. And man, to be like a single parent with no other, adult it's rough. Like, and so then I go to work and I talk these ladies' ears off and they're like, holy crap. And I'm like, dude, like,
I've been holding this in all night and all morning.
And they laugh, but I'm like, seriously, like my girls are obviously, they're 5 and almost 4. So they can, you can chit chat with them, but it's not like you can, cry to them because you've had a rough day. I cry and Kaya's like, Mom, you're not a baby. She thinks babies cry. And I'm like, no. And I've been trying to teach her like, no, adult people are sad sometimes and, they cry. But that's her. So it's like, I go to work and I'm just like they're all like, the other day I was off and I come back. Man, we really miss you, JoAnn. Like, this place is so quiet when you're not here. And they're like, no, not in a bad way. We really do. Like, you keep the conversation going and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, well, I'm glad you guys miss me.
That's why I liked having you over on the days where I'd be making 150 pasties because I'm just in the kitchen by myself all day. And then JoAnn would come over and just chat. And all of a sudden the day would just fly by.
Yeah. And your pasties are done.
Yeah.
You're cleaning up the kitchen.
And then people would be picking them up.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. I sure can chat with the best of them.
That's you need to find a job that is what you do.
No, but then,
you just talk to people all day long.
But then the other side of it though is like if I have to make a phone call, I'd rather not. Isn't it funny? Literally, like I hate calling people. Not people like calling you or something, but like calling about like, I don't know, serious thing or whatever, about a bill.
Like getting benefits.
Yeah. Like that. Yeah. Like I despise it. Like we went out to eat.
Why do you think that is though? Wait, why?
I don't know. And I worked at the chiropractors and I had to call people.
Well, like what are you scared of?
Maybe like being judged or something because I'll say something stupid. I don't know. Cause I worked at the chiropractors and I had to call people all the time. And let me tell you, oh my word, before I called, I'm praying like, please don't answer the phone. 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 And you'd think working there for almost a year, I would have actually gotten better. No, I'm not any better. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not any better. Before. And I'm like, I don't know what it is. Like, I just struggle with like, I don't know, making phone calls. Cause like,
did you grow up in the, we don't have a landline at home era?
No.
You had a landline?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when cell phones became a thing, like texting became a thing. I was probably like 17, 18 when texting became like a thing.
How many years are there between the two of you? I'm just curious.
I don't know.
I'm 36.
I'm 47. 11 years.
Okay.
Enough that she always felt like a little sister type of friendship.
It's kind of like the space between us.
Yeah, we've got like 3 different decades here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was so funny, like even, being like your kids are grown and mine were so little and it didn't like, besides when we wanted to go out, that was the only time there was like really an issue. But like even coming to your house and like, oh, my kids would make a mess and she just did not care.
Right.
She was like, so we can wash it. And I'm like, what? Oh yeah, we can wash it up. Like big deal. And I just remember being like, whoa, like this is crazy. Like my mom was like the opposite. She's like, oh, I don't,
I'm like the person that'll give a kid a measuring spoon or something and let him play in my 5-gallon flour bucket.
Yeah. And then like, but even your
rolling Joe. Oh yeah. Playing in water at the prep sink.
Yeah. And Kaya, I still have a video of Kaya and and I'm sitting there like, dude,
water just everywhere.
Let them do that. Like and she loved it. Oh my word. Like it kept her busy for probably an hour. It was great. But I'm just like,
I'm like, JoAnn, it's just water. By the time we clean it up, it's actually going to be cleaner.
Yeah.
Than when she started.
Yeah.
Because it probably needs a cleaning there.
And that was another thing, like, even with the eating. Like, I remember, wanting to be so picky about, my kids have to eat, breakfast food for breakfast and they have to eat this food for this. And Stacey's like, who cares what they eat? Just let them eat. And it was like a light bulb went off in my head. And I was like, Well, darn too, and you're right. Like, well,
here's the other thing.
I like pizza for breakfast. I mean,
who cares? Like,
Kaya was getting like old enough where she should be feeding herself. But JoAnn's such a neat person that she would like cut up all the food and she'd be feeding her kid, not wanting her to feed herself because she's going to make a mess and she's going to get messy and all this stuff. And I'm just like behind JoAnn's back. I'm just like peeling a banana half down, handing the kid the whole banana and letting her walk off with it. And JoAnn turned on, what are you doing? I was just like, she's fine. JoAnn, she's not a baby anymore. And she's like, oh my goodness. And Kaya just biggest grin on her face ever.
Yeah.
Like,
I got the banana.
like let her, I'm like, if you're worried about her clothes, I said, strip her down to her diaper and let her eat. Then like wash her off with a wet wipe and throw her clothes back on.
Man, it was like vacation at Stacey's house. Like you just eat all over the house. She didn't care. And I wasn't used to that. Like I wasn't. My mom was a very, very clean person, and you ate in the kitchen. You didn't go outside the kitchen. You know, you ate breakfast for breakfast, like, you know, and whatever. That's the way she did hers, and that's great. And it worked.
She probably had to though, because she had a lot of kids.
For sure. Like my mom was a very,
get to be very like tight ship.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, you know, with me and, you know, like she'll come over to my house and, you know, I got stuff sitting around and, you know, usually I'd be like, oh, you know, I need to pick it. And now I'm like, I just, you know, Mom, this is me. This is life.
Just to be clear, my house is clean.
In case anybody's wondering.
No, her house was very clean. But what I'm saying is that she would just let the kids eat around and we would clean it up. But the whole point was it can be cleaned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just never, like, that concept just never, I just didn't know it. And I was like, wow. Like, so now my kids eat in the living room and I'm sure my mom's like horrified.
Oh, I've taken it to a whole new level now that I have a grandkid. I was blowing bubbles in the living room. And Anna's like, over your dead body would that have ever happened when we were kids if we tried to blow one bubble in this house? You would have been like forcing our butts outside. And I was like, I know, but you see, I'm the one blowing bubbles and I don't want to get off my couch and I pay the mortgage. So shut your mouth. I can do whatever I want in my older age.
Right. And if it's a little bit of soap on the rug,
so
great.
I want to replace this rug anyway. It's kind of my whole theme right now.
Like, if I wipe something up, there's pre-soap on it. So I just have to, you know, great.
Oh, that's funny.
It is funny how it change.
Mm-hmm.
Not trying to force this thing to a close or anything, but also don't want to keep you guys all day. But is there any bit of advice or wisdom or something that you would say to single moms that are listening, or someone who is in a relationship with someone who's in addiction right now? Anything that you're like, was kind of an epiphany to you that was really revolutionary to you, or some kind of encouragement or something like that?
As far as being in a relationship with somebody in addiction, they won't change until they want to.
You can't love them enough.
No. And I learned that lesson the hard way. You know, how do you say that? I would never tell somebody to get a divorce because it's horrible, it's awful, it's not good, but get out of the situation if you can. And ask for help, and don't be ashamed that you're living in this crappy situation, because, you know, it happens, and the only thing you can do is get yourself out, ask for help, and learn about the addiction. Learn about it. Like, take the time to, even if you go to recovery meetings by yourself, go, because you will learn so much, get so much information about why, what it means, how you can not be an enabler. And I'm not saying that you would never be an enabler, but, you know, it's just puts a different perspective when you can understand why the person's doing what they're doing. And it gives you empathy to know that it's not always their choice. And they don't wake up in the morning thinking like, oh, I'm going to hurt so-and-so. That's not the case. Like, when it gets bad enough, they're not choosing to do it anymore. And as far as, you know, if you're a single parent, like, ask for help. Ask. People are more willing to help you than you want to believe in your own head. And I'm speaking to myself
Mm-hmm.
because I still struggle with asking for help. And I still feel bad if, people have to watch my kids or, they got to go out of their way.
Mm-hmm.
And mental health is so, so important. Take a break. Like if you are able to get a break, take a break. Like I only work 4 days a week. I get Wednesdays off. And when I first started being off on Wednesdays, I felt so guilty. Like I felt so guilty, like bringing my girls to daycare and coming home and having a day to myself. And then around Thanksgiving, Christmas, I didn't get a Wednesday off for probably a month and a half. And I was literally going insane.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a time when, my girl's granny, their dad's mom, will take them, a few Friday nights a month and have a sleepover. And this was before that. Like I literally was not having a break.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like, wow, I can't feel guilty about that anymore because my mental health is better when I get a break, and I'm a better mom when I take the time to step back and have a minute to myself.
And I bet you that on that day off where the kids go to daycare and you have the day off, I bet you're getting a lot of housework and grocery shopping. And what do you do? No, what do you do? Honestly.
I do grocery shopping.
I'm not saying you should.
No, yeah, I know. I definitely grocery shop. I've turned into that old person who likes to grocery shop at 8:30 in the morning at Walmart because nobody's there. And I don't have to take my kids because if that's the one thing that I will absolutely refuse to do is take my kids to the grocery store because, oh my word, it's just, Mom, I need this. Mom, I do that. So I try my best not to have to obviously I take them every once in a while, but I try not to. I do try to clean, but sometimes I literally don't do anything. Mm-hmm. And I do sometimes deal with mom guilt because I'm like, I should have washed my floors. I should have done this. I should have done that. But sometimes I don't. And then sometimes I'm so productive. I'm like, oh my word. Like I worked more on my day off than if I was at work. Like I'm so counterproductive. So I don't know. It just depends.
Yeah. It's just whatever you need, whatever you need that week,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But 100% get a break because to be on 24/7 it's rough. Like it really is rough. But
So you'll feel guilty at first, but you'll probably get over it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what it took for me is to work a month and a half straight, being with my kids the entire weekend. And then finally, and being like, wow, like I'm actually not crazy. I just needed, I am kind of crazy, but
in a good way.
I just needed a break. And that's honestly what it was. So now in this moment in my life, I can afford to be, I can afford to only work 4 days. And as long as I can afford it and I can take them, I'm gonna be thankful to God that, he'll provide that for me and make it possible that I can. So,
but listen, I don't know if I should call you out on this.
Call me
and
out.
we can delete this out of here.
You call me out.
Yeah.
You dropped the kids off this morning at daycare. Tell Lois about it. Do you want to or no?
Oh, I don't care.
We don't have to put it in if you don't want
No, I put it in but this is a part of mom guilt. I always wear my work outfit to drop them off because I feel guilty. I feel guilty that I'm literally dropping that. And that was a big, huge struggle at first, like dropping them off and going home. Like, oh my word. Like, is this okay? Like, I'm like, are these teachers here like judging me? Like, what are they thinking? Like, oh my word. So that was part of wearing, but then also I wear it because I'm like, I don't want my kids to know I'm coming home because they're going to be like, oh, I want to stay home with you.
Yeah, right.
She just puts on the uniform regardless. So it's and maybe that gives some consistency to the kids too. I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing.
I don't know.
But I was kind of giggling at her because I'm staying at her house and she came home and goes to change. She's like, sorry, I got to change. I put on my uniform to drop them off on Wednesdays when I'm not working. And I just kind of laughed at her, but it's interesting hearing it's probably
the reasoning
from the kids' point of view. It makes sense, but
yeah.
It just makes your life easier.
Like I literally just the first couple, what are these teachers thinking? Like, oh my word, like this lady's dropping her kids off and like she's going home. And I even used to put it on when I went and picked them up. And in the last couple of months, like I've gotten better just wearing regular clothes, going pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
For real. I would literally put it on to go get them because I was concerned about what these teachers are going to think about me, like dropping my kids off at daycare and going home.
Yeah.
Gasp.
Yeah. And it's actually, and it's funny because Kaya's teacher was like, "Oh, you got a day off? Oh, that's so awesome. Like, that is so great. You got some time to yourself." And I was like, okay, maybe she's not judging me.
Yeah.
I think we all have a way of putting the worst construct on what we think people might think of us.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, most of the time, they're not thinking anything about us. They're not thinking
No.
us at all. Like, we don't exist.
They're thinking about what your construction you're putting on them.
True. That's actually a good point. Where
Everybody's.
Mhm.
yeah. That's crazy to realize.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for joining us, JoAnn. That was really insightful. And I really appreciate that you're willing to open up and share because it's kind of personal and it can feel kind of like you're putting yourself out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate that so much.
Yeah.
It's been good.
You're welcome. It's nice to be able to share. I know Stacey said you don't share last names.
No.
But if anybody would want to reach out to me and you wanted to reach out to Lois or Stacey and ask who I was and you have questions or anything, like feel free to message me. I would be more than happy to help with anything.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to get a hold of us or get a hold of JoAnn, we'd love your feedback. We'd love your questions. And she just put out the offer. She's willing to talk. So if anybody wants to reach us, you can email us at whosegirlareyou@gmail.com. That's WHOSE, whosegirlareyou@gmail.com.
Yeah, we'll get the message to her.
Yes.
If it's specifically for her, we'll forward it to her and
Mm-hmm.
let her open up that communication.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. You guys have a great day and we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks,
All
Liz.
right. Thank you.
Bye.